Good morning, fourth grade. We are going to do lesson 9.6 today, and in our lesson, we are going to add fractional parts of tenths and hundredths. How can you add fractions when the denominators are 10 or 100? Because we know when adding fractions, we have to make our denominators the same. The fourth grade classes are painting designs on tile squares to make a mural. Mrs. Kirk's class painted 10/3 of the mural. Mr. Beck's class painted 21/100ths of the mural. What part of the mural is painted? Well, you know how to add fractions with parts that are the same size. You can use equivalent fractions to add fractions with parts that are not the same size. So our example is 3/10 plus 21/100ths. Write 3/10 and 21/100ths as pairs of fractions with a common denominator. So it says think. 100 is a multiple of 10. Use 100 as the common denominator. So we have to take 3/10 and make 3/10 into hundredths. So we have to times the denominator of 10 by 10 to make it 100th. And whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. So you have to multiply the 3 times the 10 as well, and you end up with 30/100ths. So we turn the 3/10 into 31/100ths, and then we can add that to 21/100ths that Mrs. Beck's class has painted, and we get 51/100ths. So 51/100ths of the mural is painted. Let's try this one. Write 1/10 as 10/100ths. Well, to make 1/10 as 10/100ths, we have to make our tenths hundredths. So whatever we times by the bottom, we have to times by the top. We times 10 on the bottom by 10 to get 100, and we times the 1 on the top, and we get 10/100ths. Then, if we're adding 4/100ths and 1/10ths, we've made our 1/10ths into 10/100ths. So now we can add 4/100ths plus 10/100ths to get 14/100ths. So 4/100ths plus 10/100ths equals 14/100ths. On the back, our next example says, and this is adding decimals, Sean lives 0.5 miles from the store. The store is 0.25 miles from his grandmother's house. Sean is going to walk to the store and then to his grandmother's house. How far will he walk? Step 1, we have to write 0.5 plus 0.5 as sums of fractions. So think 0.5 is 5/10. So 0.5 equals 5/10. Think 0.25 is 25/100ths. So that becomes 25/100ths. So we have to add 5/10 to 25/100ths. But we know if we're adding fractions, we have to make the denominators the same. So we make 5/10 equal to, we have to times this by 10 to get 100ths, and then we have to multiply this by 10. So 5 times 10 and 10 times 10 makes it 50/100ths. Now we're ready to add them together. Write 5/10 plus 25/100ths as 50/100ths plus 27/100ths. So 50/100ths plus 25/100ths equals 75/100ths. Now, step 4 said write the sum as a decimal. So 75/100ths equals 0.75. So Sean will walk 0.75 miles. Try this one. Find 0.25 plus 0.40. Well, 0.25 is 25 100ths plus 0.40 is 40 100ths. In order to add them, they both had to be over hundredths. We had 25 hundredths and 40 hundredths. 25 plus 40 is 65 hundredths, which equals 0.065. Now, let's look at share and show. It says find 7/10 plus 5 100ths. Well, again, we have to turn 7/10 into 70 100ths because we have to times both top and bottom by 10, which gives us 70 100ths. Plus 5 100ths equals 75 100ths. If I'm going to write that in a decimal form, it's going to look like 0.75. Now it says find the sum. 1/10 plus 11 hundredths. 1/10 has to be multiplied by 1/10 has to be multiplied by 10 top and bottom, which becomes 10 100ths plus 11 100ths equals 21 100ths, which would be written in a decimal form as 0.21. Now, number 3 says add 36 100ths and 5/10. 36 100ths stays the same, and 5/10 turns into 50 100ths. 50 plus 36 is 86, so it's 86 100ths. Written as a decimal, it's 0.86. Our next one says 0.16 plus 0.45. 0.16 would be written as 16 hundredths plus 0.45 is 45 hundredths. If you add 16 and 45, you get 61, so it's 0.61. Number 5 says 8 cents plus 88 cents equals 96 cents, or 8 100ths plus 88 100ths equals 96 100ths, or 96 cents. On your own, 6/10 plus 25 hundredths. Turn your 6/10 into 60 hundredths plus 25 hundredths equals 85 hundredths, which would be written as a decimal 0.85. This one is 7/10 plus 7 hundredths, which would be written as 70 hundredths and 7 hundredths, which would be 77 hundredths. 19 hundredths plus 4/10 would equal 19 hundredths plus 40 hundredths, which would equal 59 hundredths. 3 hundredths plus 9/10 would be 3 hundredths plus 90 hundredths, which would equal 93 hundredths. The next one says add 55 cents to 23 cents and come out to 78 cents. 19 cents plus 13 cents equals 32 cents. Now, our last one say write the number that makes the equation true. 21 hundredths plus how many tenths to equal 61 hundredths? Well, what would equal 40 hundredths would be 4/10. And on this one, they have 2 tenths plus how many hundredths equals 91 hundredths? Well, 2 tenths turns into 20 hundredths. So 20 hundredths plus how many hundredths equals 90 hundredths equals 70 hundredths. On the back is your problem solving. I'll let you do that today, and I will go over it with you on Monday. Have a good weekend.